podcast listeners, if you hear my voice right now, I need you to do something for me. I want you to take out your phone or on your computer, go to Apple Podcasts, search for Ask Your Oldhead Podcast. You'll see my logo, my little picture, my little image there. Find the show. Please rate and write a review. It's a small thing, but it helps others find this work and find what I'm doing here. And it really, really matters, as small as that may seem. So if you could please do that before we get into the show, I would much appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Let's get into it. Peace. Peace. Before we begin the episode of Good Brothers, I wanted to say thank you for listening and rolling with the Ask Your Oldhead Podcast, Good Brothers, and more to come, here as we get into 2021 in the spring, letting you know that there's a lot more in store, and I'm really, really hoping that you will join me on what should be an interesting ride throughout 2021. So we're going to get into a little talk about Georgia, probably a lot of talk about Ray and Ghost. So let's do it. Peace. Say peace. I'm Majestic.
My brother Justice Rajee, what's going on?
Good, I'm good. It's the time we record, and we're gonna get caught up on a few things that have happened in the world. So let me just start with the heavy and go to the other. So Georgia, probably the leader or the first in what will be probably a series of restrictive voting laws being passed to state governments. Georgia passed and signed into law one of the most restrictive voting, law changes, voting policy changes, I think, has come up in the last, decades. And so it's ridiculous in one sense, but it's also clearly what apparently conservative politics believes is the best way to run a democracy. What are some of your thoughts? What's happening in Georgia?
I mean, there's a couple of things. So one, I think, goes back to like the old black folks. For a long time we talked about old black folks being like, voting is a privilege and versus of right. And I think in, some aspects of the community, post, civil rights movement and post the Black mayors movement, if you will, there's been a broader conversation of like, voting sucks. Voting doesn't change anything for people. And it goes back to like the old black folks saying like, if it wasn't important, they wouldn't take it from you.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
And so I think we see in the most naked way possible, right? They acknowledge that, the Republicans acknowledge that with demographic change, right? At least on a national level with demographic change, that Democrats will continue to have an advantage going forward. And they're like, the only way we switch this up is, the only way we leverage, or the only way we counter their demographic advantage, is to actually change the rules. Bottom line, right? And so It's like, on one level, there's a Machiavellian element of like, oh wow, I guess that's a good idea. Like, you can't change destiny, so you're just trying to tinker with the elements for a minute, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're just trying to tinker with the mechanics of some shit you can't control. But then another level is one, it shows, the network and the vision, because you figure coming out the Biden election, Biden wins. Literally within 3 months after that, the state that allowed Biden to win, essentially, and to have control of government, has now changed the law to mean you couldn't do what you did only in November. Right? Like, it only took 5 months for a national movement, and it will be other states soon, right? I know it's going to come to Pennsylvania, like it's going to be other states, to actually do what they just did. Right? And so even the idea of, hey, well, we can't give you water and food. Because what they know is that black folks and brown folks sometimes don't be wanting to stand in no lines all day, right? And it's like, okay, you give people water and stuff like that because people standing in the middle of Georgia in elections and it's hot, right? And and so it's like, well, you can't do that. And if people thought to themselves, well, I can't get nothing to eat, I'm not going to vote, right? Like I'm not standing in the line. So it's a naked attempt to just de-rig the system and put off destiny. With that being said, like I said, go back to my original point. Now we really acknowledge that we see what conservatives and Republicans know how important it is for people to be in office. And if it wasn't that important, they wouldn't change every rule in the book to make sure that their people were there,
right,
or to minimize your power. You know what I mean? So I think it's a wake-up call. It should be a wake-up call for a lot of organizations who traditionally minimize the vote and more they support more like direct action, to show that like the actual power of voting is going to be a critical element in our society. And I'll just say one more thing about this. Again, let's look at a kind of a cycle or a horizon. You had a president that said, hey, if I lose, it must be because they cheated, right?
Right.
Cool. He lost. He said it's because you cheated. He called the actual state to say, hey, you cheated. Find me these votes, right? Which I think sometimes we downplay that a sitting president actually called the Board of Elections in a state and said, find me 11,000 votes.
Right.
Okay.
That
right?
happened.
And then Supreme Court upholds it. Then the same president and other forces get thousands of people to come to the Capitol and storm the Capitol because you said they stole the elections. Then 3 months after that, that state disbars the person who ran the election from running the election and makes it more difficult to vote. So if you just look at that kind of process, you start to recognize what actually is being fought for in this country, right? And I ain't in a bunch of hyperbole when I say shit, but like you really recognize that there's a population of people who will do anything to stay in power.
Yeah.
Like that is not hyperbole. That is real. And all we got to do is look at the last 6 months to see how real this actually is as far as what people perceive as power, and especially somewhere like Georgia, where the demographics are changing so fast that all the Republicans can do to maintain any kind of relevance is actually to change the rules and move the goalposts. So, yeah, man.
Yeah, it's it is it brings to bear to me further evidence that whatever level of organizing, policy work, economic development work, safety net, emergency needs, work, if there's not that the political work in terms of elected, how elected folks fit into that, it can't be this antagonistic relationship with the concept of the politician to remain successful. Doesn't mean that politicians have to run everything. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is that who your politicians are, what your politicians do, where your politicians show up, and how you support them has to be, someone needs to think about that in the scheme of every other policy, social, economic action that one may be doing to try to improve the condition of the community and other people. Because that these folks would definitely be like, yo, if we could create a way where you can't vote on nothing, like you can't make no decisions, or we can, undermine whatever things you're doing that we don't agree with, if we can use position and other structures to undermine it, we will. I mean, it's quite ridiculous, the idea of saying like you can't give someone who might need water. Like if you take it outside the context of them being in line to vote, in what should be in theory like the most sort of sacred civic act, right, between like the person and a supposedly, even in the was a representative democracy, whatever. Yes, but you pick the representatives, right? So if it's a representative democracy, and conceptually that means that I, in the best case scenario, would be voting for someone who I, it's like high level. I'm like, man, this person has a platform that includes my wishes and aspirations and my concepts, and they're also like a person whom I can see I could trust to some degree, right? To mid level, I don't really like all their platform, but maybe they're either you might trust them as a person, but their platform's a little shaky, or the vice versa. At the bare minimum level, let me pick not the worst person be the one that keeps winning in terms of my needs and wishes. But, thinking somewhere in the mid-range, that the ability to pick representatives that could advocate for your community and your space's needs can be a part of the planning and the organizing and developing that you and your community are doing. And then this person can help these persons, because it's not just one, can help to make sure that, you want to improve the green space, in your neighborhood. And y'all are organizing, y'all planting trees, you're doing all that stuff that people can just take on themselves, right? And then you find out, oh, we just passed this law that the city cut down any tree that it thinks is a safety risk, and they come and cut down all your trees in 1 week, right? Because of a policy that you didn't have no input on, right? And that can happen. That is actually the history, right? That is the history of Black people being disenfranchised from the voting and electoral system, is that you can put things in the law, and then when they come and they do this despicable act to you, they'll be like, well, you be like, well, who can I call? You call the police, but well, they're not breaking the law, sir, when they, forcibly, had your family sell their heirs' property because they got 4 cousins you don't know to sign off on something and take $1,000 check. Right. Just as an example of where there's an opportunity to change code and ordinance law, and also political representation around property transfer. Now, if you want to get into the bigger philosophical debate about the legitimacy of the state and all that types of, I mean, that's a great thing to do. So, that's a thought exercise, but in the practical reality,
no, that's real.
What we need to make sure that what we have, we maximize our ability to access and outcomes. And they putting their chips on the table. They like, look, we gonna make it hard as hell for y'all to vote in people that you like. So even if you in a state, and I try to remind people of this, that despite people's perceptions, I mean, a lot of states, there may be, we like to say the coastal elites and blah 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 blah. There's a lot of states that are on the coastal states that are, pretty much going to probably go, Democratic, especially in a lot of national elections. But when you get into the weeds on some of them other elections, it ain't always so, so simple. And there's a significant amount of people that are, seeing myself as probably, more not conservative, more we're voting wise, that I would be voting, Democratic. But bearing witness that there's a line, and it does lean to the what right now would be the more Democratic, aka liberal ticket. But it ain't that far off. You know what I'm saying? And it don't take much. People get you need a couple public incidents and the right temperature, as we almost had, and folks will be like, man, I don't know. I think these conservatives do a better job protecting the economy, or whatever thing that we've, supposed to effectively associated with conservative thinking in the last 20 or 30 years, whether it's true or not, and vice versa. With as we have the long we've spoke on at times, liberal politics, seeming to not be confident enough in its own ideas to go like, nah, this is the shit we want, and we're just going to do it. And it's like, no, well, we got to get our conservative brothers to agree with us. No, you don't. Just you got the numbers, vote for it. That's what your man Mitch be trying to tell y'all, and then y'all act like he said something else. He's all about if he got the votes, he gonna do what he want. And if it was, so going back though, I think it's really important that folks understand how important local politics are. Because I think for almost all of us, I think state politics is sort of like, you know what I mean? Unless you're really involved in politics, like unless you're like a local advocate, like really in the mix, people just be like, oh yeah, my state rep. Like people don't even know who their state rep is. They're like, it's somebody, you know what I'm saying? Like, but those people really make a lot of decisions that impact you. Like that is the person, I mean, the national level might be the better source for if you need money or resources for a project you're doing in your area. But if you need like the law changed, more than likely your state representatives, state senators are the people that you need to get on board with what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? And even...
No, I think it's in the middle. It's like this weird purgatory where there's someone knocked on your door from a local level. You say, oh, that's the mayor or that's this person. And then you have the national one that we spend billions of dollars to convince you about, right? And then there's this thing in the middle where we don't spend that much money to convince you on it, but it impacts more of your life every day than the federal politics.
Yep.
But it's less connected than local politics. And Republicans have done an amazing job of controlling state politics because they understand that's where a couple of things come in: voting and redistricting, right? And those two things become the important locus of power on a state level.
Yeah. And I think we get pulled into even like your various municipal races and city races, right? Oh, the mayor and the city council. And if you're in a bigger city, right? You're in a big city like Philadelphia. I mean, even, Pittsburgh, Portland.
Right.
Like, yes, your mayor, stuff is real important. And especially also depending on the type of government, where if you're in like Portland, where you have a commissioner government, where the mayor is sort of the boss, but he ain't totally the boss. Or other things where you have a strong mayor, where the mayor is like, oh, the mayor can make a lot of decisions happen if they want it. Whatever the case, if you don't know the lay of the land of the rules, and you can get caught up in wanting something from someone that really doesn't have the authority or the resources to act, but they become the figurehead. Right. And then meanwhile, a state rep who might actually be able, oh yeah, we have some money in the state budget for sidewalk fixing or, whatever. Right. And then, at least like what happens here is you have a lot of things because it's and I think a lot of Western states are similar to this in that you have these cities that are really big. And then you have these other large parts of the state where it's largely, rural economy, rural structure, commodity businesses, not as many people. So there's an imbalance, there's this tug of war around, what stuff goes to the big city, you know what I'm saying? What stuff goes, out to, the various, regions of the state. And it becomes a really, although population wise, Portland, Seattle, I guess Boise and Idaho, being a smaller version of this, have an outsized impact on state decisions. But right. And Boise's nothing at all like Portland or Seattle. I should say from a political perspective, but just as that being the biggest city in Idaho, like, but those cities still have to really find balance and power with the rest of the state. They don't just get to do, and then there's stuff sometimes will come up, this or that may not be popular with folks because they're like, well, we don't want all the money to go to, to Portland or the Portland metro area, right? So that's the surrounding counties. And
right.
I mean, I think in many ways it's similar. It's a little bit different than in Pennsylvania, except where Pennsylvania is effectively, in my perspective, like isolated. Philadelphia is like its own, like Philadelphia's over there and it's the rest of the state. You know what I'm saying? But that was a strategy. That was an intentional work to undermine the power that city could have on overall state, politics. You know what I mean? In New Jersey, because Newark was a much, much bigger city at one point in the population. I think it balanced out where, the struggle for change is always between these various different, very conservative districts in the state that are often, pop peopled by very moneyed people involved in finance and the pharmaceutical industry and shipping and these other things that have, they have a vision for the state that isn't always the same as maybe, more working class folks. And so like every state, every region has these things. And when we don't, sometimes in our political analysis and conversation, we're like, oh, well, he's a state rep. They don't even get paid for that in the state. It's like, yeah, but the state rep, they introduce bills and laws and stuff like rules.
and they still vote on shit. Like they still make decisions. Like don't connect it. They don't get paid or they don't work full time with what they actually voted on.
So, I guess my other tip before we pivot out is just that, like, really in this next year is like people just got to be ready and study these changes. If you're in a state where folks change up the rules, like I said, I appreciate living here and doing mail voting because I get my ballot every year and I knock it out. It ain't really that hard, Now if you houseless or you in other forms of distress, there are ways you can still access your ballot that aren't terribly cumbersome, but they would be something you probably would need some support doing. And there's no currently there's not a lot of restrictions on somebody giving you a ride to the elections office. You know what I'm saying? So you can get your ballot. You know what I'm saying? Or at least I think you can do that. I'm pretty sure you can do that as a private citizen, like me myself, not like as a representative of something. You know what I mean? But like folks need to pay attention to what people are doing in your state government, I guess. What it boils down to. Like you be like, oh nah, man, who knows what they're doing? Like they be up there making broad decisions.
Right.
I have one more thought, but one thing, something else you wanted to add on about that before I let it go.
Yeah, no, I just think it's really one of these things that, like, for more than ever, these conversations about the mechanics of how these systems work matter to people's lives, right? And voting for example, voting for what happens post-pandemic becomes more important than ever once we see what the long-term impacts of it are, economically, educationally, because we don't have any awareness of that, right? Like we don't know how young people are going to come back to schools. We don't know how much, the Biden administration put money in for next year for schools. We just don't know what the needs are going to be across the board, right? Once we stop stimulating the economy, we don't know what the fallout is going to look like, good and bad. So it's like, you still got to go and vote in 2 years, and you still got to go vote for Warnock and Ossoff, like in 2 years, right? And so the ability to bring out the same amount of people, if not more, in a midterm election traditionally is extremely difficult. And Georgians know that, right? They know the history of it's difficult for the sitting party to win the midterm because people will say, what have you done for me lately? Right? They
were like, we gave you them checks.
Right. And again, I think Biden to the thing is they're playing cold, hard, old school politics. We cut you a check, didn't we? Right? To which some people will say, yeah, you did cut me a check, dog. My bad. Right? Like
you did come through with that check, fam. We thought you was bull. We thought you was bullshit, but you wasn't.
Right. Yeah, I needed that. You know what I mean? So that again, that may confound American history. It didn't when Obama did it, but also they didn't sell it. And so yeah, I just think we'll see. But I think like anything, it's like I think you said it the best. They put all their cards on the table, dog. Yeah. It's on. Like we don't want you to vote, and so we'll see where it goes from there.
One thing I just wanted to add, I had the pleasure to meet Sister Park Cannon and out of respect that I'm sure you got bad people sending her emails of what can I do and this and that. I just want to say personally, Park, I respect you. If you need Rajee to jump on the plane and, you in the Rajee ring of protection. If you needed brothers to come out, man, and stand around, be on, do something. You know what I mean? Just let the brother know, man. You good people. So.
She'll be fine if they bringing you for security. Like the damn fruit, then the FOI out there. You be more like, wait, what's the security guy? That's just Rajee, man. He's a one man wrecking crew.
Let's just go. You know what I'm saying? But I just wanted to tell appreciate you, Park. I mean, he's good people, and anything folks could do, let us know. So, man, they be tripping, man. It's cold.
Hey, man, they want it all. They ain't playing around with you.
Not to live in the things that we gotta persist and persevere through and can't change at the moment. It's spring, seasons is changing, and an event occurred of I would say of monumental musical significance last weekend, which for like one of the first times I actually got to catch a piece of it while it was happening, because I always get caught in limbo.
Right.
But we had Raekwon, Chef, and the Ghostface Killer do the Verzuz, and I had to say it was quite entertaining. And I have a lot of different thoughts, especially in when you think about it in light of, if you watched the recent Wu-Tang doc, if you watched, one of you Wu-Tang fan, you listen to the music, you if you like us were there when it started, so to speak.
Right.
And so yeah, I would pitch to you, where's a place that you want to start? Just looking back at that interaction.
So I think where I want to start is, so I guess I want to start with Verzuz itself, and they celebrated their like 1 year anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of everyone being in the house and then watching something on TV, turning it into a kind of thing unto itself, partnering and selling that thing to a technology company, and then allowing anyone that performed to be shareholders in that actual and get equity in that actual company, right? By virtue of the fact they performed, I think we will go history. If Triller really goes public for the money people think it will, history will record that as like almost a RZA-esque thing he did with Wu-Tang and the 9 different record labels, 6 different. Because what you've done is you've created value, and then you've actually monetized your value within a year, right? Think about that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you did something and it got so big in a year that people cashed you out. In a year? So I think from a business level, in the fact that, it has become such an accepted part of the global community that an idea like that was that attractive, is one. So then to the Rain Ghost one, I think to that touch, I think you see the power in the impact of Wu-Tang as a global movement and as an inextractable part of the hip hop, of the Black and brown experience of that time, and then by extension the hip hop experience, and then by extension the global experience. And you just saw it that night, and you saw, you and I have talked about this before. I don't get into what's real hip hop and not, because if it exists, it's real. However, a certain kind of music that made people reflect on a time and see the power of it from what they did was, I thought, really, 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 really impactful, right? This is probably the first Verzuz I've watched from beginning to end. Maybe this one along with Bounty Killer and Beanie Man, because that one was just too much. That was too funny. That was that was too good. But again, because I mean, very similar in a sense. Bounty Killer and Beanie Man also reflected a very explicit kind of cultural experience. You know what I mean? But yeah, I just thought it was probably between this one and Too Short and E40. It probably was the most engaging from beginning to end.
Yeah. I mean, I start on the business side. I really, as a creative product, because actually I was talking to Freedom about this yesterday. I was rewatching it because I missed like the first half, so I was watching the whole thing again. And he was like, oh yeah. He's like, and he was having, he was sort of like he's like, I thought it was like a rap battle. And I watched probably the Gucci Man, the other one, but I was like, I realized it's not. It's like a battle in like a beat battle context. Like it's not really, the artists are pairing. You know what I mean? So you compare and contrast them as artists. I mean, there's always going to be, depending on their relationship, some level of competitive edge that might start to happen during the show. But it's also a celebration of, the legacy and the work of the artists that are there. Because it's not like the Verzuz isn't two dudes you ain't never heard of. You know what I'm saying? The Verzuz is always going to be somebody that got a catalog.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's coming in like, yo, like I got product. Like, it ain't like me coming out of rap retirement talking about, yo, I did like 7 songs, you know what I'm saying, back in 96. You know what I'm saying? I had these verses. Y'all ain't never heard these ones. I'm about to do them now for you. Like, I mean, like, that's not what you're getting there. What you're going in for is you have established people that have done a great body of work. And then you putting them in a place, kind of like to give people some of the energy, across their time. And to me, it points to something that is especially in the world of music, that hip hop has not always had, and I would say hip hop and even like modern R&B, the idea of, man, you coming out here to do your hits, like you going on tour to do the hits, like you're not going out to do a new record. But early, especially in our history,
right,
like hip hop was young, and so it was always about what's your next record, right? Where now hip hop's got to the place where it's like, hold up, man, we got 25 years of records. Like, I don't need to do the new record. I mean, I could do the new record if I got one, and maybe, as goes through, and at the end, some new stuff, new stuff. But it's like, when Ghost came here last and I went to see the show, I was going, one, I had never seen, Ghost perform live. But two, it was like going to a Ghostface version of a Wu-Tang show. You know what I mean? Because they did parts from different Wu songs, but then it was like Ghost stuff, then it was, some of just Ghost songs. And it was great. It was good times. You know what I'm saying? Like, but that is traditionally within the world of music. I mean, and it's something I think we were talking. I was thinking about when we were talking about Gucci Man and why can't I say
Jeezy?
And looking at how much music Gucci Man, I mean both of them, but especially Gucci Man, and I was like, I don't even have time to try to listen to all these songs. There's like 7,000 songs, man.
Right.
But when you think of music coming out of like the live performing, maybe like the blues, jazz, tradition where you made money as a musician by traveling around performing places. I mean, you did hundreds of thousands of performances of songs. And sometimes we never, you think of the recorded songs as like evidence of the real product, but the real product is also you travel around and do all this music and people come see.
Right.
So Verzuz, in a sense, in it as a content piece, as a piece of entertainment, creates this space where you get to sit with these, people and hear some of their music, and they tell a few stories or whatever. But then also it's in it's in this package where it's like you can watch, you just sit on your phone and you can jump on your phone and everybody can tune in, and you would think of, in a sense, that it's it's directing towards younger people in a sense, or you would assume it was because because of the format, but the content is not really not. I mean, some young people are probably definitely into it, but the content is not necessarily depending on like young people who's the hottest, newest artist, so to speak. Which is an interesting contrast that they put this together. Because in a sense, they've like pulled probably some of our generation, especially folks that look at their phone like an ancient scroll. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, how do I get on the verses? So wait, I got to get an Instagram. What do I do? I mean, I want to see E40 in there, man. I heard it was going to be on there. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they said Gladys Knight going to be on there. I'm trying to see how I can see. Right. So I'm sure there's some folks who were not engaging with media and entertainment in that format that found the pathway there because what was created, which I think is pretty dope. And then I didn't know a lot about the piece with getting with the Triller deal, because that since the last 2 or 3 that is on Triller, because I thought it was on, I know one was on Apple.
It was Apple. So they courted different people, but Triller, much like Steve Rifkin's deal with RZA, was the only one that allowed them to transfer equity to the actual performers.
Okay, dope. That was, I mean, in a sense, the tools are there now. I mean, the tools, I mean, people could always have been created fair and even contracts that didn't exploit and steal from people. However, you know, maybe that would have come at a lower cost, a lower reward for those who make the most. But then at least you wouldn't have destroyed so many, you know, lives by not allowing them to gainfully grow as creative artists. But I think that the pieces and parts are all there now, where especially if you have something as you become established that you can access an audience and have a back and forth relationship in terms of as a consumer, so to speak, or as a like. Now I don't know, you know, to what degree people actually contribute and pay for music or entertainment. You know, I think there's still the challenge of folks like, but can I get it for free? Where can I watch it?
Yeah.
But I think that's super dope. Now, to the other part, that was good fun, though.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I don't know if, like, our experience of Ray, the Purple Tape, of Iron Man, you know what I'm saying, Spring Clientele, you know, I like Mobilarity was pretty cool. I didn't listen to that all the way till later, but Ray's had several recent joints. So it's real dope. I don't know if you heard the Bad Bad Not Good joint record with Ghost.
No.
It's pretty solid. It's a pretty dope record. You know what I'm saying? It's, you know, I forgot how many tracks, but it's nice. Yeah, I mean, it's like they have a prolific catalog. You know what I'm saying? But you know, the root is cemented in the, you know what I'm saying, the I'm gonna say the antics, the emoting, the all of the stuff that you love. You know what I mean? If you know, it's one thing to see Ray and Ghost as artists, and I don't know how other people process it, but sort of the person, you know, and sometimes some of us might be that person in our circle or squad, but folks in your life that are a real character, like, you know what I'm saying? And a reminder of what it's like when you kick it with somebody that's like, yo, you're like, man, this dude is hilarious. Man. Is he trying to be funny? Like, is he like, he's not fucking with you. He just says how he get down. You know what I'm saying? And a reminder, like, it's like all metaphor and a little bit of simile. You know what I'm saying? So like, instead of just telling you what they're trying to say, it's like this. They're just like, you know what I'm saying, purple flowers and squished velvet. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh yeah, I feel you. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think that as artists, as writers, it's amazing at times to try to listen and track, because like you might be trying to like, oh, I'm trying to understand what they saying, and it's like, I mean, just feel what they're saying, brother. Don't think about it too hard.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's a really Good point. I want to touch on something around that, I think, with the broader context of hip hop, because prior to, well, this kind of connects to a broader conversation about the culture, the culture supreme mathematics in the nation. But the way that they communicated as abstract prior, I would say the origin story of really abstract raps is probably Ramel Z, and by extension, Basquiat, which a lot of people don't know, did a song with Ramel Z, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to like the 80s, later in the 80s, because when Curtis Blow is like, I'm about to go down the street, look at the people you meet, right? Run DMC is like, look at my Adidas, right? Then Rakim comes out and be like, traveling magnificent speeds around the universe, right? Like, plans get small as balls of clay, straight to the Milky Way, thrones out of sight, far as the eye can see, not even a satellite. Like, and so then it goes from there. And at the same time, De La kind of engages in a very abstract rap kind of process, differently than Rakim, but still abstract, which goes to Tribe, to the Jungle Brothers, right, to an extent, right? So, but the abstract stuff left the streets I would argue, post Rakim.
Mm-hmm.
Right? East Coast rap got real explicit. Like G-Rap, much of the forgettable stuff of the early 90s. Tim Dog did Fuck Compton. Like, it was really clear what was happening.
Right.
Ray and Ghost, Wu-Tang across the board, but then Ray and Ghost in particular, really brought this creative writing back into the music.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what we now know and respect for Doom was doing it on his own, right? Again, kind of out that relationship, that native tongue adjacent world, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But what we later came to love so much about Doom has its direct correlation, its direct relationship to Ghost and Ray and Wu-Tang.
Yeah.
Musically and writing wise. And so I do see what you're saying, of this beauty of, like, we read books all the time that the author is using different language to communicate an idea. And they showed you how in their writing and in their everyday communication,
right,
they use different words and different expressions to communicate ideas. And the worth of that, right? Like, everything is not a documentary. There is such thing as fiction.
Right.
Everything doesn't have to be straight ahead. And I think we often suffer from that in looking at what we're trying to hear, because everyone has set everything up as so real that because of the parameters of what's real, there's no space for growth. You know what I mean? Because everything is real.
Yeah. It's like, it's right now. Yeah, I'm telling you.
It's right. Everything is right now, exactly as I see it, and I want you to see it.
Yeah.
Right? Not necessarily any creativity, but how will you see it when you come back and listen to it later? Right? So.
Yeah. And it's a definitely that's an ill thread you pulled there, because I think that the aspect that that you can use this real descriptive text, but you sometimes are talking about back a letter bird street shit,
right,
beefing, people getting robbed, violence, mayhem, people selling drugs,
right,
stress, sadness, happiness, you know what I'm saying? And the idea that, as we say, almost like, I mean, the idea for folks always remember that as Rakim said, rap is rhythm and poetry. You know what I'm saying? Like you are using the poetic voice when you write rhymes. You know what I'm saying? You are doing a descriptive, activity with words. You know what I mean? It's not just it's not whatever way one may find a pathway to devalue it.
And it's not all pedestrian. You see what I'm saying? The shit's not all pedestrian. I think it's important for listeners and people for us to have this conversation, because what we see now in our music, broadly speaking, in hip hop, not just in America, but also globally, when you listen to some stuff out of England and some other places, has become very pedestrian in its regard, not necessarily to the creativity of how they're doing it, but the creativity of what they're actually saying. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think some of the music is still creative in how they're doing it, but actually, like, what words did you use and put words together, and it's putting words together in ways that are creative. Is that honored?
Right.
Right? Versus someone saying, just get straight to the point. How much money you got?
Yeah.
I got more money than you. I got more money than your whole damn crew. You know what I'm saying? I got more money, one or two. Like, and then you just have guns and money in the video because the music has become so visual, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I really thought about, I wanted to make sure I noted this. I really thought about Ta-Nehisi Coates when I was listening to Rain Coates. And he talks about how he's been influenced by Black Thought, Rakim, Raekwon, and Ghostface, right?
Mm-hmm.
How when someone is writing, even if they're writing fiction or nonfiction, because I think much of his fiction and nonfiction still belies a creativity and the use of a pen that doesn't just stop where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
And 25 years later, I think we can listen to the Purple Tape. 20 years later, you can listen to Supreme Clientele and actually hear how the music they created didn't stop where they created. That it has a life, has a literary life beyond what they did, what they said at that point.
Mm, yeah.
And not all hip hop has a literary life
beyond
after the fact. You know what I mean? And it all didn't have to be creative, because some very clear music had a literary life after the fact, aka The Chronic.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I'm not trying to make this like the more outlandish it is, the better. But just more, if it's visualized and it had a literary life, it's stamped.
Yeah. I mean, and I would say this just as a thought too. I mean, the number of songs, and this is me and Lai were listening to something or trying to listen to something, and then I was, you know, like the songs where it'll describe some sort of sexual act, and it's just like, yeah, then I put it in her butt, and it's like, it's like, dog, could we get a metaphor in there or something? Like, right. I don't really need I don't need that visual. I don't need to know that. Right. Yeah, you know I'm saying, this woman performed, you know, or fellatio on you at a high level. Like, I don't actually, like, I'd rather you do something metaphorical there. And and believe me, I mean, I used to teach, you know, about the health and wellness as it pertains to your sexual, your engagement decisions. And probably of anybody, I'm not prudish about people having frank conversations on these topics, but also don't think that that's the best way to hear it in a song. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is still something that to me is private and sacred enough that maybe you should, you know, give it a little bit of buffer. So we don't need to have the like, yo, I'm like in porno movies. You know what I'm saying? Porno movies, that's me. That's what I do. You know what I'm saying? Like, slow down, dog. Like, could you know, save that? You know what I'm saying? But the, you know, the other thing I thought, I mean, then there was all the other stuff that was just hilarious. I mean, you got the wardrobe changes. My man's going. He going to the bathroom real quick. like the RZA appearance with it was like, yo.
They are so disjointed in their creativity, but that you just appreciate it, right? That's like somebody rapping. That's like, hey, RZA, peace. Peace, y'all. What's going on? Okay, all right. Then like, hey, let's take a sip of this Ciroc. Man, what is this? You know, I don't drink that. What's that? Right? What's this? I don't drink that. No, it's like Ciroc Orange. Okay, cool. Let's take a little bit. Because it's like at some point you realize you needed a Ciroc commercial.
Right. Like, you gotta remember, we gotta big up Ciroc in there. Like, we gotta
like at some point you needed a commercial and shit. It's like, oh shit. RZA's like, oh shit.
Yeah, you gotta make sure.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Let's just this is all toast.
You know what I'm saying?
Each other.
Right.
And Ghostface like, I don't know about drinking this shit. Oh no, this is good. It's like summertime. Yeah.
God, and then you get the sense that, like, as the show went on, you know what I'm saying, and Capadonna makes an appearance, and Dak makes an appearance, and I'm about the High Chief Jamal
Master Killer.
Master Killer. I can't even say his name. Jamal Reed pops on the scene, piece of the guy. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, stop. You get the sense that basically, I mean, again, and this is why I thought about the Wu documentary. Because when you watch the documentary, you could tell that there's issues between men that have known each other almost their whole lives and then also did business together, right? That they that although they come together to do this, it's not like everything was just, you know, a primrose trail, right? But they also are still like, yo, we still kick it with each other. Like, we still come together when we can come together. You know what I'm saying? Like Meth didn't make an appearance, and that's peace. You know what I mean? Meth acting, Meth got TV shows and shit. Meth might not have been able to make it. You know, you got what appeared not to be there to perform. But for all we know, they was all off camera. Right. You get the sense that they might have been kicking. They might be like, yo, what are we going to do after this? Like we going to get some meat.
No, it was great for their brand. It was great for their brand. And to your point, the documentary, the Showtime documentary, or Cinemax Showtime, and then the actual Hulu documentary, and then this cemented their brand, arguably, as the most enduring global hip hop brand. Now, don't take saying that like, because Jay-Z, for all of himself as a brand, the brand of you thinking of Jay-Z in the way you have has gone really with big ups and downs. Of when only people in the East Coast that listen to mixtapes knew Jay-Z, to when he was underground, kind of an underground-esque thing, to when they blow up, to when he becomes the biggest rapper on the planet, to then he raps on albums with Beyonce and with his wife and Jay Electronica. You see what I'm saying? And now we know him as a cultural impresario, but not a hip hop brand in that context. In that sense. And it still hadn't lasted as long. Yeah. Right? Because Wu-Tang, you figure, and you and I both know and both have kind of intimate history of them through interactions, as well as just we won the population Olympics, the proximity Olympics, to be able to be in the Philadelphia, New Jersey area when they were coming of age. So to protect your next singles and WPRB, the Princeton station, which was actually the first station to ever play Wu-Tang, WPRB. Even before the New York stations. You know, so just like that idea, and then it endures 28 years later, and people who don't even listen to Wu-Tang per se, that still wear a W. Like, in that sense, the power of their brand is like the Rolling Stones. Because there are those of us, think about when the rock t-shirts became popular in hip hop for some strange reason, right? When everybody started wearing like Kiss shirts and Rolling Stones shirts. But not having actually listened to the Kiss or the Rolling Stones, right? In the same way, you had people who don't listen to Wu-Tang every day that would wear a Wu-Tang shirt or Wu-Tang dunks. So I just think it was a powerful representation of that. But again, even just like their music, at best, it's disjointed, right? At best, it's chaotic. You know, and I think you and I both can appreciate that as far as being in the nation. Like, we can both appreciate that there's some beautiful, chaotic shit about to happen. That you don't never know quite what's going to happen, but you do know at the end of the day, it's going to be a beautiful thing that occurred from what we just did. But you don't have no idea in the middle of it how this is going to turn out.
This might go any direction. But there's also something that they're emblematic of, or they at least make me think of, is that you can have some restraint about worrying about what these men are about to do. Like, because there's a thing around black men and black artists, sort of like people like it seeps into us, even, you know, from the way our experience in America goes, where you're like, are these brothers about to get into some wild shit? It's like, nah, man, just chill out. I know it's a lot of energy. It's a lot of weird movements, a lot of shifting. You know what I'm saying? But just let him, it's gonna be fine. Like they're gonna do some songs. You know what I'm saying? The crowd might get hyped. You know what I'm saying? He might make some references you don't totally understand. But at the end, you know, it's gonna be a good time. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, even I thought it was, you know, even the ups and downs, like the rhythm and the joke when like he did like All That I Got Is You. You know what I'm saying? He was like, I don't want to cry, man. Like, but that's a really emotional song. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it is a song. It's a hip hop song about grief, right? Like, which is why I think most contexts people be like, "Yeah, man, write a rap song about grief." They'd be like, "Nah, man, grief." And it's not a hip hop song about grief that is like, you know, my man got killed, and like in some, you know, I don't know, guts and glory shit. It's like came up hard. You know, my mom had stuff happening. My brother, you know what I mean? We came out of these situations, like, and then this is out of all of this, you know what I mean? Like I've you know, I've become a man that I can respect. That's a pretty heavy thing to do in mid-90s hip hop. I mean, and something I think most people wouldn't contextualize that way.
I mean, well, so if you think about Purple Tape in particular, a couple of songs on the Purple Tape, but then also obviously North Star at the end with Freedom on it. Like they were Rainy Days, like they were tapping into other emotions. I think Verzuz's ability to use sound to tap into other emotions that hip hop to that point was not tapping into: sadness, loss, and grief. Right? Hip hop was tapping into braggadocio. It was tapping into anger. It was sometimes even tapping into a bit of reflection. Sometimes, depending on what beat you're talking about, right? I mean, Q-Tip was doing some interesting stuff, right? But like Rainy Days, Can It All Be So Simple remix, you know what I mean? North Star, that's something sad and grief-filled. Touching on emotions that weren't being aged. And so Ghostface, I think, was able to take the mantle, and I would argue was hip hop's first widely liked emo rapper before X. Because I would say the Ghostface and X are 1 and 2 in that conversation.
Yeah.
Right? To really, because even Tupac, as much as he evoked with his words, the songs never were quite like that, right?
Yeah.
You know how with Pac, you could have assumed that there were 4 of the beats that he rapped to and did the same song. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Like that he just wrote it and then came in and said it on whatever beat you had. Which is why I also think one of the enduring differences on why we perceive Biggie and Pac differently with the weight of their music.
Yeah.
Because Biggie's music was just curated much more it was done better, right? Yeah. So anyway, I just think when we go back and look at that ability to emote and talk about grief and talk about something that many of us have experienced in some form, doesn't be with our mothers, doesn't be our fathers wasn't there, we all of us fathers wasn't shit, you know what I'm saying? But like, you know, sometimes you gotta do a daily reminder that everybody's father wasn't shit. That it tapped on an element that hip hop was not doing. We were dancing, we were telling you how tough we were telling you how much money we had. Sometimes we even wanted you to know how smart we were, but we weren't touching on universal emotions. So I think to that point, and how they creatively communicated that via the verses, as well as, and I'm going to kind of shift a little bit here, emoting a host of other emotions that you don't see a lot of Black men get the ability to emote. To kind of tapping on what you touched on, like brotherhood, right? Like, again, you said, we've been through 25 years. We ain't always the best of friends, but we always love each other. And you're always my brother, right? You think about a lot of hip hop groups. once it's over, it's over.
Yeah, yeah.
And if they come back together, it's only to get paid.
Yeah.
There's no undergirding, you know, and I think the science of mathematics, frankly, and then the brotherhood that emerged out of a shared experience dealing with mathematics becomes the thing that gives heft to their understanding of brotherhood that is palpable throughout the whole show.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I that was you know, like I said, that theme. That's why I said like you get the sense that, I mean, in having Young Dirty, you know what I'm saying, pop up, that like that there's some cross movement with them as family to each other. You know what I'm saying? And a reminder to, and I think it's something that, at least for most I mean, at least I'm saying most black men, like you have, you know, hopefully you got a squad. You know what I'm saying? You got some people that's like that's the team. Even when we don't see each other all the time or whatever, or people, you know, go this way, go that way. You trying to keep the squad together, and it don't need to be no, you know, I mean, you know, might be disagreements, misunderstandings, and definitely missteps. But we can find common ground, and that's important to our health and well-being that we're able to do that. You know what I'm saying? The other thing I thought was interesting, and it had me thinking, just, you know, because, you know, when they were giving like shots out to different other artists, you know what I'm saying, you know, and they were like Fat Joe, Jada Kids, Seawood, and blah blah blah, Gilly. They were naming the different times you listen, and as I got towards the end of the show, I started just sort of thinking about, you know, you have, like I said, hip hop has multiple generations of artists. And you have artists who know that they were all part of a real specific generation, as it were, you know, that artist, that crew really of the 90s that found their way. So they're basically the, I don't know, the graduate school or the new school. You know what I mean? So if you go old school, which is, you know, Melly Mel, Curtis Blow. I don't know if Melly Mel is okay with me saying he old school. I hope he, you know, he don't want to fight me or something. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean,
Stop
like,
complaining, right? Be mad.
Be mad shit. You know what I mean? And you get sort of the new school with like Rakim, EPMD, you know, what's like is it Mr. T? I'm gonna say Mr. West Coast cats. Like Bourne's gonna give me the business if I got this wrong.
Above the law,
like Above the Law, and them,
Miss Master T,
yeah,
Mr. Master Spade. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
You know
That generation.
And
yeah.
then
King T, Ice T,
King T.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like, it's a T in there, and why can't I say it? You know what I'm saying? Like, and then you got, and then you got like the second wave of West Coast rap with like NWA and all that, like kind of going to a different place. But then like the 90s artists are like not the same, because like even like the Chronic and all that, like Snoop Dogg is a 90s West Coast rapper artist to me. Right. He's not the same as NWA. He might be connected to that tree, but it's not the same. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
The way Wu-Tang does their music, Pete Rock, CL Smooth, even LL, 90s LL is not the same as 88, 89 LL. You know what I'm saying?
No,
like,
yeah. Mama Said Knock You Out is not, Walker Said Knock You, Mama Said Knock You Out is not Walking with a Panther. Yeah. That's the best way I can describe it. Yeah, you're totally right.
You know what I'm saying? And so like you have, but that 90s crew, you know, with Biggie and Pac and Puffy and the Heat Makers and DMX and then Rough Riders and then, you know, that somebody else I'm missing on the West Coast side of that I'm trying to think of that is important. Well, I mean, everything that was happening in the Bay. Everything from High Road to E40 and then to Mac Dre, like that whole era has a certain style, swag, all of that. And I guess, you know, you got put Jay-Z, Rockefeller on them in there too. And then you get to the 2000s and that, you know, some of them folks didn't survive the same. It didn't happen the same. You know, some found a bigger pop appeal in the 2000s, and it wasn't really the same way they was rapping. Digging in the Crates crew. I mean, it's all these different artists you can think of, right? And you start writing it down, and in a sense, I got the feeling like the way I don't remember them bigging each other up on tracks then, but like now being able to see each other as almost like common peers and like, you know, members of a certain generation. You know what I mean? The way maybe like sports athletes, you know, if you're a football dude, you see yourself sort of like in a fraternity of other people that was, you know, pro football players or pro ball players or whatever. And I thought it was sort of an interesting piece to see, you know, and it's also, I guess, in tune with the age that most of these brothers and sisters are now, that you have this reflective, you know, space where you're like, yo, that's what's the name. And he's a great artist. I you know, we did some songs with them back in this day, or, you know, I got to know them brothers. Like, you know, where I think it always appeared that in the backdrop of everything, especially when artists were young, is like is a level of competition with each other that I don't think, you know, you've matured to a place where you don't feel you got to be like, yeah, I'm better than you. Like, I got more hits. Like, it's like, nah, you got your music, I got my music, and it's whatever. Like, but I think it's kind of dope. It points to, you know, I ain't saying we going on the old school hip hop cruise, you know what I'm saying, when we 60, but it might happen. You know what I'm saying? It might be a dope dope ass cruise. You're gonna be on with Wu-Tang, you're gonna be on there with with the whole state property. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, like, I'm going on that cruise, so I'm going once at least so I could be too old to be dancing and drink too much, because that's what you do on cruises. You do a lot of drinking.
Right. Try to go back in your room and try to forget the fact you're on a boat.
Yeah, so you eat and you drink, because you got to keep eating until you don't get seasick. You know what I'm saying? Not that I don't know if I'm ever, you know, I mean, sort of one love to the cruise industry. I hope you figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Post pandemic. You know what I mean? But like, this is it's an interesting, you know, I guess the like thing that, you know, I felt, you know, listening to them perform is also like, okay, it's like, you know, there's a whole generation of cats that are in the same time frame in terms of moving through the music industry and developing themselves as creative artists. So, you know,
and I think it's kind of, it taps back to, in some senses, to the original point about versus, like, collaboration over competition.
Mm-hmm.
And even using the idea of competition truly as collaboration.
Yeah.
And we know that for many people, because our hip hop has started, it being the energy behind some of it being what I would call a young man's or young person's game.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Which is about the assertion of who you are, right? Usually as a competition, not a collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the baddest bitch. I got the most money. You see what I'm saying? I got the most bars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything is usually in context to somebody else. So I think elder statespeople acknowledging that collaboration or competition being the order of the day is a larger idea of reflection on how different members of that community are matriculating in the music industry, and by extension, kind of like broader society. So to your point, I think this versus being the first one after they made the deal was a good indicator of why it is an important cultural lodestone.
Yeah, and I really love the idea that artists, people of the industry and of that age that were successful in the 90s and in the body of Swizz and Timbaland and whoever else, you know, may be involved in the back end that we don't know about, but them being the two, to my understanding, that really put this product together, developing something that does create one that allows us to kind of celebrate the music. You know what I mean? And the dope thing is that they do actually extend beyond just hip hop. I mean, because you got the R&B stuff, you got this Isley Brothers was Earth, Wind, and Fire thing that's supposed to happen. I might be, man. Look, everybody, take care of your elder family members, man. Don't have them out here trying to get on the verses, clicking on the wrong thing and getting their bank account wiped or something, man. Like, because it's gonna be like, I heard Earth, Wind, and Fire and Isley Brothers is performing somewhere. Like, how do I, nephew? How do I watch that? How do I get on it? Where's that at? What I gotta do to see that? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's gonna be some people huddled masses. You know what I mean? I think to see that. And I don't know how they're gonna put that together. I don't know if we're gonna get Philip Bailey and
I'm gonna say it right now, and I hope that I'm wrong. That I want to be wrong about what I'm about to say. And later, people could be like, he was wrong. Yeah, like, you're right. I'm happy. You got Philip Bailey and Ronald Isley. Everybody else is some sort of variation. I mean, some of the other Isleys were there, but you didn't really listen because of the other Isleys either. This wasn't even a Tony conversation where every now and then Dwayne would rap. Right. I mean, sing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? My name is Dwayne. So my thought is, you have these groups that everyone's remembering. You have to put people on stage that remind you of Maurice White, right?
Yeah.
That kind of don't allow you to think too much about the fact of Ronald Isley looking like a whole live player at 70-something almost, of the range of Philip Bailey. Like, that's going to be like fun for me, but also kind of like, okay. All right, let's see here. Like, let me close my eyes and see if they just put the regular song on and they just do dances. So therefore, I don't have to come to grips with the reality that, like, these are 70-year-old men and it's not really going as well as I wanted it to. But hope springs eternal.
Yeah. Nah, I hope they figure out a way either to make it real intimate, or like it's like Earth, Wind & Fire's band is over here and Ozzy his big band is over there, and then it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, I gotta turn my headphones down. I gotta move the phone further away from my face so I can performance. But I think it's to me, it's like you've created something that I believe has an enduring future. Because honestly, we did that exercise, I think, when we were talking about what's the one we talked about with Nabri last time?
It wasn't Kiss and Fad?
No, it was. It'll come back to me. It's on the tape. Go listen to it.
Yeah, everybody go listen.
Everybody go listen to that episode. But there's a lot of other combinations and opportunities out there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, there's other Wood. You can do Jizza and Deck.
Right. No, there's a whole bunch of them. There's bringing Raekwon and Ghost back for Styles and Kiss, right? Like, there's a whole bunch of, even though this is not the same, there is there's been no Common, no Talib Kweli. Like, there's been a couple of things that haven't had access. No De La, right? So, like, you got a whole bunch of space still to go. I mean, of the West Coast classics, you had Snoop and you had Too Short. You still ain't had Cube, right? You still haven't had Dr. Dre, right? Dr. Dre was supposed to be on, but after the bad sound with Babyface and Teddy Riley, he's like, I can't do it. But I mean, so you still have those. You still have Diddy and Dr. Dre doing one together, putting their top 20 songs at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You still got the Soca one that ain't nobody seen yet. You still got, when Maxwell decides to actually do verses, right? So you still have
there's a lot of It's a
lot of versions. Yeah, it's a lot of versions, man. So
all right. Well, with that, I think we could say we can adjourn for the day. I would say to folks, man, go catch you in Versus and enjoy. You know what I mean? Watch the shows and
here's what I'm gonna say, people: wait till the end when they start dancing to the music at the end.
Yeah,
is the most enjoyable 45 seconds, I think, because that's how I would dance when I came in the spot when that music was on. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
After 5 hours of drinking Lambrusco and Ciroc Orange, as a RZA would say,
right?
and then hearing songs from the 70s and being turned up. The DJs did a great job. But go listen to it and dance.
Indeed. And also don't forget to get involved in state politics. So with that, I would say peace.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to Good Brothers. Thank you to my good brother, Majestic. We record Good Brothers just about every week and try to touch point on a few current events, things happening in our unique perspective on how we experience it and how we think about it as brothers of over 20 years of life and what have you. If you enjoy the podcast, one of the best ways to support is by becoming a patron. For a small contribution monthly, you can help keep this creativity going, keep the growth and development of what we are creating here and will be creating moving. But the other way, and besides that, is also just share. Put somebody on, let a friend listen. Email it to your auntie or your uncle or your friends. I mean, maybe your friends, maybe not your auntie and uncle to start. But please, share, rate, subscribe wherever you listen. So hopefully others will have the opportunity to get exposed to what we're doing. Also, you can, head to the Etsy store. If you search Ask Your Oldhead on Etsy, it'll go to the shop and you can buy a hoodie. There'll be some new things, switching up in there in the very near future. So keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on the future of Good Brothers. I flirted with it during the summer, but I wanted us to just keep sticking to recording regularly. But there's going to be some changes coming in here in the spring, and I think you're going to like it. Not too much to the content, but to the way we do it. So, anyway, man, be safe out there. Get involved in your state and local politics. Listen to good music. Love the one you with, and kiss your children. You know what I'm saying? With that, I say peace.